When you create an animation in 3D Studio Max, the keyframes are converted into a motion path that's usually converted into a Bezier line. So when we create an animation with a sphere, just a simple animation, turn on the Animate button, select and move, and along a different timeline, we'll manipulate the position of this object. And it's going to create a motion path automatically. Now motion paths, or motion controllers, can have different types of trajectories. They can have a linear trajectory, which means that it will linearly interpolate between these keyframe points that I'm creating. Or I can have a Bezier curve or different types of curves to manipulate the motion of this object. So I'll turn off the Animate button and press play, and I can see that my object is moving between these points along a curve. If I click on the motion panel and I go to assign controller, I can select the position and assign a controller for linear position. Now this will linearly interpolate. In other words, move in a straight line between these points. You can see that it's doing that now. And under the assign controller rollout, you can see that the position is now a linear interpolation or a linear position motion controller. I can switch this back to Bezier. Click OK. Now it's Bezier motion controller. And so there's a Bezier curve that's used to interpolate between these keyframes. Select position, select the controller again, and we can use a number of different other methods. We can use motion capture, we can use position script, we can use TCB position, or we can select a spline path or 2D object and have the object follow that path. Let's see how to do that. I'm just going to select this, click and add a path controller and click OK. You can see that the object's not moving now because there's no path for it to follow. If we close the assign controller and scroll down, we can see that now there's a rollout for paths. I'm going to go to the Create panel and I'm going to select Shapes and draw a line in the top view. So I'll start here, click and drag, 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 and then right-click to finish the path. Now I can go back to the Motion panel and I'll select my sphere and select a path for this sphere to follow. I click on Pick Path, click on the path I want it to use, and you can see that my object moves onto the path. And I can move along that path so that it's going to start at a different point along that path. And you can see my object is moving along that path. So this path motion controller is telling my object to move along a 2D path. So if I set this to 0, it'll start at the beginning of the path. And I can have it follow the path and bank as it follows. So now in my perspective view, when I play, you can see my object banks as it turns. Or I can have it just follow the path, and you see my sphere turns as it hits the corners. So you can play with these parameters to change the way that this object follows the path. You can change the axis it uses to go along the path, you can flip the axis, and so forth. Motion controllers can be changed either in the Assign Controller under the Motion panel, or you can actually go to the Track view, select the object that you have the motion controller assigned to. I can select position, go to Assign Controller, and assign a controller here. I can change this back to Bezier position, and then I have to go back and reanimate because I've destroyed the animation information. Or I can change this to a noise position, click OK, and now my position is dictated by a noise pattern. I can click on position and right-click it and get properties and control the noise that's controlling the motion of my object. If I close this and close this, when I press play now, my object just wiggles around according to this noise pattern. I've changed the motion controller from a trajectory along a path to moving to a noise pattern. Motion controllers are a very powerful way to manipulate the way that your objects move through space over time. There's a lot to it, and I suggest you look in your manual because we don't have the space or the time, and it's really out of the scope of this CD to get into all of the different motion controllers. Just know that to add a motion controller or to change a motion controller, you select the object you want to control the motion of, go either to the Modify panel or to the Track view, select the transform that you want to affect. You can either transform the position, rotation, and scale by just clicking here, or just the position, just the rotation, or just the scale. Select any one of those. Click on Add Controller, and then select a controller and click OK. And it's added to your object. And you can select the transform, right-click on it, select Properties, and you can change the noise that's affecting your object using all of the different parameters. Now my object is scaling and moving based on the noise motion controller.